I walked into my son's office for our lunch date and heard him on the phone saying, "Yeah, mom's basically senile now. Once we get power of attorney, we can dump her in the cheapest home and sell everything." His wife was nodding and smiling. I stood frozen in the doorway. He saw me and didn't even flinch. I turned and left. The next day, his business partner received documents showing I owned 60% of the company and I was calling for a vote to remove him. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. It was exactly noon when I walked into the gleaming glass tower in downtown Atlanta that housed Thompson Development Group, my son's company, or so I'd always thought of it. I did this every month, scheduled a lunch date with Travis, my only child, to stay connected, to be part of his life, to maintain the relationship that had felt increasingly strained over the past few years. The receptionist, a young woman named Ashley, smiled when she saw me. "Mrs. Thompson, Travis is expecting you. He's just finishing up a call. You can wait in his office if you'd like." "Thank you, dear." I walked down the hallway past the conference rooms and the cubicles where young professionals worked at their computers, toward the corner office at the end. Travis's office with his name on the door in gold lettering, Travis Thompson, CEO. I was proud of him, or I had been. Lately things had felt off. He was distant, dismissive, sometimes spoke to me like I was a child instead of his mother, but I'd attributed it to stress. Running a company was hard. He was busy, that was all. The door to his office was slightly ajar. I could hear his voice inside, talking on the phone. I was about to knock when I heard him say, "Yeah, the dementia is getting worse." I froze. My hand halfway to the door. Dementia? Who was he talking about? "Mom's basically senile now," Travis continued, his voice casual, matter of fact. "She can't manage her finances anymore. Can't remember basic things. It's sad." "Really?" My breath caught in my throat. He was talking about me. "Once we get power of attorney, we can dump her in the cheapest nursing home we can find and sell everything. The house alone is worth $800,000, plus all her investments. Dad's life insurance payout. We're talking at least $3 million total once we liquidate everything." I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand gripping the door frame so hard my knuckles turned white. Through the crack in the door I could see Travis sitting at his desk, and across from him in one of the visitor chairs was his wife Simone. She was nodding, smiling, like they were discussing a business deal. Not my life, not my dignity, not everything I'd worked for over 68 years. "We've been playing the Concerned Children Act for months now," Travis said. "It's exhausting, but the lawyer said we just need one more doctor to sign off that she's incompetent, and we can move forward with the POA." Simone spoke up. "I already found one, Dr. Matthews. He'll sign anything for the right price." "How much?" $5,000. "Cheap considering what we'll get." Travis laughed. Actually laughed. "Mom thinks I'm successful because of my business skills. She has no idea the company is underwater. We need her money to save it, and she's just sitting on millions doing nothing with it. Once we have POA," as Simone said, leaning forward, "we transfer everything to our accounts. Put her in that Medicaid facility in Clayton County. The one that smells like urine and has roaches in the cafeteria." "Nobody visits those places," Travis agreed. "She'll be forgotten in 6 months. Probably dead in a year." They were planning my death. My disappearance. My erasure from my own life. And they were doing it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. Travis looked up from his desk. His eyes met mine through the crack in the door. We stared at each other for a long moment. I waited for the guilt, the horror, the shame of being caught planning something so monstrous, but there was nothing. Just a flicker of annoyance. "Mom," he said flatly, "you're early. My name is Margaret Thompson, and before I tell you about the shareholder vote that destroyed my son's career and saved the company he was running into the ground, you need to understand who I am. I'm 68 years old, born in Detroit in 1957, oldest of 4 children. My father worked at a Ford plant. My mother was a seamstress. We didn't have much, but we had love and ambition. I was the first person in my family to go to college. Got a full scholarship to Wayne State, studied business administration, graduated summa cum laude in 1979. I met Bernard Thompson my first year working at an accounting firm in Detroit. He was a junior partner 5 years older than me, with dreams bigger than the Motor City could contain. We fell in love over balance sheets and business plans. Got married in 1980, moved to Atlanta in 1982 when Bernard got an opportunity to start his own business consulting firm. We didn't just build a marriage. We built an empire. Thompson Office Supplies. Our first venture started in 1985. We bootstrapped it with $15,000 in savings and a whole lot of determination. Sold it 15 years later for $3 million. Thomson Printing Services came next. Started in 1990 while we were still running the office supply business. Grew it for 15 years. Sold it in 2005 for $5 million. Thomson Commercial Cleaning was our biggest success. Started in 1995. Built it to 200 employees across 3 states. Sold it in 2010 for $8 million. I wasn't just Bernard's wife. I was his equal partner. I was CFO of all 3 companies. I managed the finances, the operations, the strategy. I had an MBA from Emory University that I'd earned while working full-time and raising Travis. By the time we sold the cleaning company in 2010, Bernard and I had accumulated serious wealth, not billionaire money. But we were comfortable, very comfortable. We'd invested wisely, real estate, stocks, bonds. We owned our home outright. A beautiful property in Buckhead worth about $800,000 now. When Bernard died 3 years ago from heart disease, he left me everything. His half of our investments, his life insurance, his share of our remaining business interests. I was alone for the first time in 33 years of marriage, but I wasn't destitute. I had approximately $4 million in liquid assets, plus the house, plus other investments. I didn't need money. I didn't need anything except to figure out how to live without the man I'd loved for more than half my life. Travis was my only child. We'd wanted more, but I'd had complications after his birth. He was our miracle baby, our everything. I'd poured my love into him, paid for his education at Morehouse, helped him get started in business, supported him when he wanted to start Thomson Development Group 12 years ago. And now he was planning to steal everything from me and lock me away in a roach-infested nursing home. I don't remember walking away from Travis's office that day. I don't remember getting to my car or driving home. The next thing I knew, I was sitting in my kitchen staring at the wall, trying to process what I'd heard. My son's voice, Mom's basically senile now, Simone's smile as she nodded along, the casual way they discussed buying off a doctor, forging medical documents, stealing my money, abandoning me to die alone. I felt like I was floating outside my body watching someone else's nightmare unfold. My phone rang. Travis. I didn't answer. It rang again, and again. 6 times over the next hour. Finally a text. Mom. I think there was a misunderstanding today. Call me so we can talk. A misunderstanding. Like, I'd misheard. Like, I'd imagined the whole conversation. That's when I realized what they would do. They'd gaslight me. Tell me I was confused. Use my reaction as more evidence of my supposed dementia. I'd mixed up a name last week, called Travis Dennis by accident. Dennis was Bernard's brother who died back in 1995. Just a slip of the tongue. The kind of thing everyone does occasionally. But Travis had made a big deal of it. Mom, are you okay? Dennis has been dead for years. Are you feeling all right? At the time, I'd laughed it off. Of course I'm fine. Just a brain freeze. You know how it is. Now I realized he'd been collecting evidence. Building a case. There was the time I'd gotten the date wrong for their anniversary dinner 2 months ago. I'd shown up on a Wednesday when they'd said Thursday. An honest mistake. I'd written it down wrong. But Travis and Simone had made such a fuss. Mom, we're so worried about you. You're forgetting important things. And yes, I'd left the stove on a few times. I'd come home and found a pot still heating with nothing in it. I was distracted, grieving, adjusting to living alone for the first time in decades. It wasn't dementia. It was normal human error compounded by grief. But they'd weaponized it, turned ordinary mistakes into evidence of incompetence. I sat at my kitchen table as the sun set, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to be a victim. I was Margaret Thompson. I'd built 3 successful companies. I had an MBA from Emory. I'd managed millions of dollars in revenue and hundreds of employees. I wasn't senile. I wasn't incompetent. I wasn't going down without a fight. I went to my home office, the one Bernard had built for me with custom shelving and a beautiful mahogany desk, and I started pulling files. The filing cabinet labeled Thomson Development Group was in the back corner. I'd been a passive investor in Travis's company. I attended the annual shareholder meetings, signed the documents that needed signing, trusted my son to run the business he'd built. But I'd kept meticulous records, because that's what you do when you're a CFO. You document everything. I pulled out the operating agreement from 12 years ago. Thomson Development Group LLC had been Travis's dream. He'd come to Bernard and me with a proposal, Commercial real estate development in Atlanta's growing market. I need capital, he'd said. $2 million to get started. I have investors interested, projects lined up. This could be huge. Bernard had been skeptical. That's a lot of money, son. I know, Dad. But I've done my research. The Atlanta market is booming. We can make serious money. I'd believed in him. We should help him, Bernard. He's worked hard. He has a good plan. We'd agreed to invest. But we weren't fools. We didn't just hand Travis $2 million. We bought equity in his company. I found the initial operating agreement and read through it carefully. Original ownership structure. Travis Thompson, 40% founder CEO sweat equity. Bernard Thompson, 35%, $1.4 million investment. Margaret Thompson, 25%, $600,000 investment. Travis had also brought in a small investor named Gerald Mitchell, who'd bought 5% from Travis a few years later, reducing Travis's stake to 35%. Current ownership. Travis Thompson, 35%, Gerald Mitchell, 5%, in Bernard's, 30%. I flipped to Bernard's will, which I'd read hundreds of times since his death. I leave all my worldly possessions, assets and business interests to my beloved wife, Margaret Thompson. Bernard's 35% stake in Thompson Development Group had transferred to me when he died, which meant, I did the math on a piece of paper, my hand shaking. My original 25% per Damad's 35% weight. I owned 60% of Thompson Development Group. I was the majority shareholder. I sat back in my chair staring at that number. Travis owned 35%. Gerald owned 5%. I owned 60%. My son was planning to steal my money and lock me in a nursing home. But I owned his company. I pulled out the operating agreement and started reading the sections I'd never paid much attention to before. The governance sections. The voting rights sections. Section 8 for emergency shareholder meetings. Any shareholder owning more than 50% of the company may call an emergency meeting with 5 business days notice to address issues of urgent concern to the company's operations or governance. Section 9.2. Removal of officers. Officers of the company, including the CEO, may be removed by majority vote of shareholders for cause, including but not limited to financial mismanagement, breach of fiduciary duty, unauthorized actions contrary to company interests, or violation of this operating agreement. I could call an emergency shareholder meeting. I could vote to remove Travis as CEO, and with 60% ownership I had the majority I needed to do it. But first I needed to understand what I was dealing with. I needed to know the true state of Thompson Development Group. I pulled out the financial statements from the last 3 years, quarterly reports that came to me as a shareholder, which I'd filed away without reading closely. I'd trusted Travis. I'd believed his cheerful updates at annual meetings about how well the company was doing. Now I read the financials with my CFO brain fully engaged. What I found made my blood run cold. Thompson Development Group was dying. Revenue had declined 30% year-over-year for 3 consecutive years. The company had 2 major lawsuits pending from clients claiming breach of contract and shoddy construction. Multiple development projects were over budget and behind schedule. And there was $4 million in debt. $4 million in loans that I had no memory of approving. I checked the operating agreement. Section 7.3, major financial decisions including loans exceeding $500,000 require majority shareholder approval. Travis had taken out $4 million in loans without shareholder approval. That was a direct violation of our operating agreement. I dug deeper into the financial statements looking at the details I'd always skipped before. The management compensation section made me sick. Travis Thompson, CEO, $400,000 annual salary. Simone Thompson, VP of Operations, $200,000 annual salary. I hadn't even known Simone was on the payroll. When had that happened? I found the authorization in the previous year's annual meeting minutes. Travis had presented it as a routine matter, adding Simone to handle operational oversight. Standard VP salary. I'd signed off on it without thinking twice. $600,000 a year in executive compensation while the company hemorrhaged money and took on unauthorized debt. They were looting Thompson Development Group, paying themselves huge salaries while the company failed. And when it finally collapsed, they were planning to steal my personal fortune to bail themselves out. I spent the entire night in my office, reading every document, analyzing every financial statement, understanding exactly what Travis had done to the company I'd funded. By sunrise, I had a complete picture. Thompson Development Group was worth maybe $500,000 or $600,000 now, not the millions Travis probably thought it was worth. He'd destroyed it through mismanagement, overspending, and treating it like his personal piggy bank. And now he wanted to destroy me too. At 7 a.m. I picked up the phone and made a call. Gerald Mitchell, please, tell him it's Margaret Thompson calling. Gerald Mitchell was the 5% minority shareholder, a successful real estate investor in his mid-50s who'd bought into Thompson Development 5 years ago as a favor to Travis. I'd met him at a few shareholder meetings. He seemed competent, professional, and now that I thought about it, increasingly frustrated with Travis's leadership. Margaret, this is a surprise. How are you? I need to meet with you. Gerald. Today, if possible, we need to talk about Thompson Development Group. There was a pause. I've been hoping someone would want to have that conversation. How about lunch? 12:30 at Aria? Perfect. We met at Aria, an upscale restaurant in Buckhead. Gerald was already there when I arrived. Sitting at a quiet corner table, he stood when he saw me, shook my hand warmly. Margaret, you look well. Thank you. You too. We sat down, ordered drinks, and got straight to business. Gerald, I'll be direct. Have you been concerned about the company's performance? His expression darkened. Concerned is putting it mildly. I've raised issues with Travis multiple times over the past 2 years. The declining revenue, the cost overruns, the lawsuits. He dismisses every concern. Did you know about the $4 million unauthorized debt? I found out 6 months ago. I told Travis it was a violation of the operating agreement. He said it was necessary for operations and that I was being overly cautious. As a 5% shareholder, there's not much I can do, but you, he paused. You own 60% now, don't you? After Bernard passed. I do. Then you have the power to make changes. Real changes. I took a breath. I want to call an emergency shareholder meeting. I want to vote to remove Travis as CEO. Gerald didn't look surprised. What happened? I told him. About the phone call I'd overheard. About the plan to declare me incompetent. Steal my money, lock me away. His face went through several emotions. Shock, anger, disgust. That's despicable. But Margaret, I have to be honest. It doesn't surprise me. Travis has been erratic, defensive, blaming everyone else for the company's problems. Classic signs of someone who's in over their head. Will you support me in the vote? Absolutely. That company is going under with Travis in charge. We need new leadership, and frankly, after what he was planning to do to you, he deserves to lose it. We spent the next hour planning strategy. I would invoke Section 8(4) of the operating agreement and call an emergency shareholder meeting. I would present evidence of mismanagement, unauthorized debt, declining performance, and violations of fiduciary duty. I would call for a vote to remove Travis as CEO. With my 60% and Gerald's 5%, we had 65% of the vote. We only needed 51%. Who do you want as CEO? Gerald asked. Temporarily, me. I'll stabilize the company, clean up the mess, then we can find a permanent CEO to take it forward. You're qualified. You've built 3 successful companies. You know what you're doing. Travis doesn't think so. He thinks I'm senile. Gerald's eyes hardened. Then let's show him exactly how sharp you really are. That afternoon, I hired an attorney. Sharon Hayes was a corporate law specialist, a black woman in her 50s with a reputation for being brilliant and ruthless. Miss Hayes, I need to call an emergency shareholder meeting and remove my son as CEO of a company I'm the majority shareholder of. She listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Mrs. Thompson, you have clear legal grounds for removal. The operating agreement is solid. Travis has violated multiple provisions: unauthorized debt, financial mismanagement, breach of fiduciary duty. Plus, if he's actually planning to fraudulently obtain power of attorney by bribing a doctor, that's attempted elder abuse and fraud. We could pursue criminal charges. I don't want to do that. Not yet. I want to remove him from the company first. Understood. Let me prepare the documentation. Sharon got to work. Over the next 2 days she prepared notice of emergency shareholder meeting, required 5 business days notice, meeting agenda, vote on removal of Travis Thompson as CEO, evidence package, financial statements, documentation of unauthorized loans, evidence of mismanagement, proposed resolution, remove Travis Thompson and Simone Thompson from all officer positions, install Margaret Thompson as interim CEO. We'll serve Travis and Simone tomorrow. Sharon said. The meeting will be in 5 business days. One more thing, I said. I want documentation that I'm not incompetent. Sharon understood immediately. They'll try to argue you're acting irrationally. That you're mentally unfit to make these decisions. Exactly. Go get a complete cognitive evaluation. I'll write up a letter explaining what you need. I made an appointment with Dr. Patterson, my physician of 15 years. Margaret, what's this about? He asked when I showed him Sharon's letter. My son is trying to have me declared incompetent so he can get power of attorney and steal my money. I need documentation proving I'm fully capable. Dr. Patterson's jaw dropped. Travis? But he seems so devoted to you. He's devoted to my bank account. I overheard him planning the whole thing. My God, I'm so sorry. I need a full cognitive evaluation. Every test you can give me. He scheduled me for that afternoon. For 4 hours I went through a battery of tests: memory, reasoning, problem solving, executive function, verbal fluency. I answered questions about current events, did math problems, recalled lists of words, drew clock faces, solved puzzles. When the results came back 2 days later, Dr. Patterson called me personally. Margaret, I have to tell you, your scores are not just normal for someone your age. You're actually above average in several categories, particularly in executive function and analytical reasoning. You show zero signs of cognitive impairment, dementia, or any condition that would affect your capacity to make decisions. Can you put that in writing? Already done. I've prepared a detailed letter for your attorney. Anyone who claims you're incompetent is either lying or incompetent themselves. I added Dr. Patterson's letter to my evidence file. Travis thought I was senile, thought I couldn't manage my affairs, thought I'd be easy to manipulate and control. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. 5 days after my conversation with Gerald, Sharon's process server showed up at Thompson Development Group's offices. He walked past the receptionist straight to Travis's corner office and handed him an envelope. Travis Thompson, you've been served. I wasn't there, of course. But Sharon's investigator took photos of the whole thing. Travis opening the envelope, his face going pale as he read the contents. Notice of emergency shareholder meeting. Thompson Development Group LLC. Pursuant to Section 8.4 of the operating agreement, Margaret Thompson, majority shareholder, 60% ownership, hereby calls an emergency shareholder meeting. Date, 5 business days from notice. Time 10:00 a.m. Location, Hayes & Associates Law Offices. Agenda, review of company financial performance. Discussion of unauthorized debt and violation of operating agreement. Section 7. Vote on removal of Travis Thompson from position of Chief Executive Officer for cause. Vote on removal of Simone Thompson from position of Vice President of Operations. Vote on appointment of interim management. Cause for removal: financial mismanagement resulting in 30% revenue decline over 3 years. Unauthorized debt of $4 million in violation of operating agreement. Breach of fiduciary duty to shareholders. Misrepresentation of company financial status. All shareholders are required to attend. Failure to attend will not prevent the vote from proceeding. According to the investigator, Travis immediately grabbed his phone, called me. I didn't answer, called again. Voicemail, called a third time. I finally picked up. What the hell is this? He screamed. It's exactly what it says. Travis, I'm calling a shareholder vote to remove you as CEO. You can't do that. I own 60% of the company. I can do exactly that. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. This is the dementia talking. I'm not senile, Travis. I have a complete cognitive evaluation from Dr. Patterson proving it. Above average scores in every category. You were planning to steal my money, put me in a nursing home, take everything I've worked for my entire life. I heard every word you said. You and Simone, planning to bribe Dr. Matthews, get fraudulent power of attorney, dump me in a Medicaid facility. That's not. You misunderstood. I have 40 years of business experience. Travis, I built 3 successful companies with your father. I know mismanagement when I see it. Your company is failing. $4 million in unauthorized debt. Revenue down 30%. 2 lawsuits pending. You're running it into the ground while paying yourself $400,000 a year. How did you? Those financials are confidential. I'm the majority shareholder. Nothing is confidential from me. I get every quarterly report. I just didn't bother to read them closely before because I trusted you. That was a mistake. Mom, you can't do this. I built this company with my money and Bernard's money. We invested $2 million 12 years ago. We built it. You're just destroying it. The vote is in 5 days. Section 9.2 of the operating agreement. Removal of officers for cause. I have the cause, and I have the votes. You can't. I can, and I will. Prepare your defense, Travis. You're going to need it. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt powerful. In control. For the first time since Bernard died, I felt like myself again. Margaret Thompson, businesswoman. Not Margaret Thompson, confused old widow. Over the next 5 days, Travis and Simone went into full panic mode. I know this because Sharon's investigator kept tabs on them. It's amazing what you can learn when you have resources and you're willing to use them. They hired their own lawyer, Martin Ross, a corporate attorney who specialized in shareholder disputes. Martin reviewed the operating agreement and the evidence package I'd submitted. According to sources, his advice was blunt. You're screwed. She owns 60%. She has clear cause for removal. You violated the operating agreement with unauthorized debt. The company's performance is terrible. She has the votes and the legal grounds. What can we do? Travis had asked. You could try to argue she's mentally incompetent and acting irrationally. Yes, exactly. She's senile. She doesn't understand. Does she have medical documentation of incompetence? Silence. Actually, Simone had said. She mentioned she has a cognitive evaluation from Dr. Patterson. Then that argument is dead. If she has recent medical documentation proving competence, you can't claim incompetence. What if we get our own evaluation from Dr. Matthew? Martin had apparently stared at them. The doctor you were planning to bribe to sign fake power of attorney documents? More silence. That's not going to help you. That's going to get you arrested. So what do we do? Hope for mercy. Maybe she'll accept your resignation in exchange for a severance package instead of voting you out. This is my company. I'm not resigning. Travis. It's 60% her company. Legally speaking, they'd tried other approaches. Travis called me 6 times over those 5 days. I didn't answer. Simone tried calling. I blocked her number. They showed up at my house. I didn't open the door. They sent flowers with an apology card. I threw them in the trash. On the 4th day, Travis's mother-in-law called me, Simone's mother, a woman I'd met maybe 3 times. Margaret, I hear there's been some misunderstanding between you and Travis. There's no misunderstanding. I heard them planning to steal my money and lock me in a nursing home. That's not a misunderstanding. That's attempted elder abuse. I'm sure Travis didn't mean. He meant every word. Tell Simone her little scheme failed. Tell Travis he should have remembered who owns his company before he tried to steal from me. I hung up. The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Bernard's study, looking at his books, his photos, the life we'd built together. I wish you were here, I whispered. You'd know what to say to Travis. How to make him understand what he's become. But you're not here, so I have to do this myself. I hope I'm doing the right thing. The clock struck midnight. In 10 hours I would walk into that conference room and vote to remove my only child from the company he'd built. It was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do, but it was also the rightest. The emergency shareholder meeting was held at Hayes & Associates conference room at 10 a.m. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a navy business suit I hadn't worn since Bernard's funeral. My hair was styled, my makeup was perfect, my documents were organized in a leather portfolio. Sharon met me in the lobby. You look ready. I am. Remember, you're in control here. You own 60%. The vote is a formality. I know, but I want to do it right. Gerald arrived next. He shook my hand warmly. Margaret, you're doing the right thing. Thank you for supporting me. Thompson Development is my investment too. I want it to survive. With Travis in charge, it won't. Travis and Simone arrived at 9:58 a.m. Travis looked terrible, wrinkled shirt, circles under his eyes, defeat in his posture. Simone looked furious. They were accompanied by Martin Ross, their attorney. We all filed into the conference room. Large table, windows overlooking downtown Atlanta, a court reporter in the corner to document everything. I sat at the head of the table, my table now. Sharon sat to my right, Gerald to my left. Travis sat across from me, with Simone and Martin on either side of him. We stared at each other across the polished wood. My son, my only child, the baby I'd carried, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd believed in, and now the person trying to steal everything from me. Sharon called the meeting to order. This emergency shareholder meeting of Thompson Development Group LLC is now in session. Margaret Thompson, majority shareholder with 60% ownership, has called this meeting pursuant to Section 844 of the operating agreement. The agenda is as follows: review of company performance, discussion of management decisions, and a vote on removal of current CEO Travis Thompson and VP of Operations, Simone Thompson. Mrs. Thompson, would you like to present your case? I stood up, Opened my portfolio. Began. Thompson Development Group was founded 12 years ago with a $2 million investment from myself and my late husband Bernard. We invested because we believed in our son. We believed he could build something successful. In exchange for our investment, we received equity. Bernard received 35%, I received 25%. Travis retained 40%, later reduced to 35% when he sold 5% to Gerald Mitchell. When Bernard died 3 years ago, his shares passed to me. I now own 60% of this company. I placed the first document on the table, the original operating agreement. For the past 12 years I have been a passive investor. I trusted Travis to run the company. I attended annual meetings. I signed required documents, but I didn't scrutinize the details. That changed 8 days ago when I overheard Travis and Simone planning to fraudulently obtain power of attorney over me, steal my personal assets and institutionalize me. Martin started to object. Sharon cut him off. This is a shareholder meeting, not a court. Mrs. Thompson has the floor. I continued. Their plan required declaring me mentally incompetent, senile, unable to manage my affairs. I placed Dr. Patterson's letter on the table. This is a comprehensive cognitive evaluation performed by my physician of 15 years. It shows I have above average cognitive function for my age. 0 signs of dementia or impairment. I am fully competent to manage my affairs, including my 60% ownership of this company. Travis slumped in his chair. Once I learned of their plan, I did what any competent businesswoman would do. I reviewed the financials of my investment. I began placing financial statements on the table. One by one, what I found was alarming. Revenue has declined 30% over 3 years, from $8.5 million annually to $5.9 million. The company has 2 pending lawsuits from clients alleging breach of contract and construction defects. Multiple development projects are over budget and behind schedule. Management compensation has increased while company performance has declined. Travis Thompson currently draws $400,000 annually. Simone Thompson as VP of Operations draws $200,000. And most concerning, the company has taken on $4 million in debt. I placed the loan documents on the table. According to Section 733 of our operating agreement, any loan exceeding $500,000 requires majority shareholder approval. These loans totaling $4 million were never presented to me for approval. This is a direct violation of our operating agreement. Gerald spoke up. I also was not informed of this debt until 6 months ago. I raised concerns with Travis at that time. He dismissed them. Martin tried to defend. The loans were necessary for operational continuity. They were unauthorized, I said firmly. Regardless of necessity, they required shareholder approval. They didn't receive it. That's a violation. I sat down. Travis Thompson has mismanaged this company. He has violated our operating agreement. He has breached his fiduciary duty to shareholders, and based on what I overheard, he planned to steal from me to bail out his failing company. I moved to remove Travis Thompson as Chief Executive Officer and Simone Thompson as Vice President of Operations. Effective immediately. Sharon spoke. Is there a second? I second the motion, Gerald said. Discussion? Martin stood. Mrs. Thompson, my client acknowledges the company has faced challenges. The real estate market has been difficult, but Mr. Thompson has worked tirelessly to drive the company into the ground while paying himself $400,000 a year. I interrupted. That's not working tirelessly. That's looting a failing company. The unauthorized debt was a procedural oversight. $4 million is not an oversight. It's a pattern of acting without shareholder approval. Travis finally spoke. Mom, please. This company is my life's work. You can't just take it from me. I'm not taking it from you, Travis. I'm saving it from you. You've proven you can't manage it responsibly. I made mistakes, but you plan to steal from me, to lock me in a nursing home, to take everything your father and I worked for. That was just talk. We were venting. We wouldn't actually. You had already found a doctor to bribe. You had already started building a case of my incompetence. You collected evidence of every small mistake I made. Mixing up a name, forgetting a date. That's not just talk. That's a plan. Simone stood up. This is ridiculous. You're being vindictive because you misunderstood a private conversation. I understood perfectly. You want my money to save Travis's failing company. Well, you're not getting it. Instead, I'm saving the company myself. I looked at Sharon. Call the vote. Sharon stood. The motion is to remove Travis Thompson as CEO and Simone Thompson as VP of Operations. Effective immediately for cause as outlined. Shareholders will vote according to ownership percentage. Margaret Thompson, 60%. How do you vote? I vote yes. Gerald Mitchell, 5%. How do you vote? Yes. Travis Thompson, 35%. How do you vote? Travis looked at me across the table. Our eyes met. I saw anger, betrayal, desperation, but also finally a glimmer of understanding, of consequences. I vote no, he said quietly. The vote is recorded, Sharon said. 65% yes, 35% no. The motion passes. Travis Thompson is removed as Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately. Simone Thompson is removed as Vice President of Operations, effective immediately. They are required to surrender all company property, computers, phones, keys, access cards within 24 hours. I felt no joy, no satisfaction, just sadness. This was my son, and I'd just taken his company from him, but he'd left me no choice. I moved to appoint Margaret Thompson as interim CEO until permanent management can be found. Gerald said. Second. Sharon confirmed. All in favor, my 60% and Gerald's 5% voted yes. Travis's 35% voted no. The motion passes. Margaret Thompson is interim CEO of Thompson Development Group. The meeting was adjourned. Travis and Simone left without speaking to me. Martin Ross gathered their papers and followed them out. Gerald shook my hand. That took courage, or stupidity. I'm not sure which. Courage. You did what needed to be done. Sharon started packing her briefcase. Your first actions as CEO? Forensic audit of all finances. I want to know exactly where every dollar went. I'll recommend someone. What else? Freeze on all executive salaries pending review. Meeting with creditors to restructure the debt. And a complete review of all projects. You sound like you've done this before. I have 3 times. I know how to save a failing company. That evening I sat in my home office, now also my CEO office, and began making calls. First to a forensic accountant. Sharon had recommended, I need a complete audit of Thompson Development Group. Every transaction, every expense, every dollar for the past 3 years. I'll start tomorrow. Next to the company's creditors. This is Margaret Thompson, the new CEO of Thompson Development Group. I'd like to schedule meetings to discuss debt restructuring. Most were willing to meet. They'd rather restructure than force bankruptcy. Finally, I called the company's employees. This is Margaret Thompson, I'm the new interim CEO. I know there's been a lot of uncertainty. I want you to know that I'm committed to stabilizing this company and protecting your jobs. There will be changes, but we're going to get through this together. I worked until midnight, making plans, reviewing files, preparing for the battle ahead. I was exhausted, emotionally drained from removing my own son from his position, but I was also energized. I was doing what I did best, saving a business, solving problems, making things work. I was Margaret Thompson, CEO, not Margaret Thompson, confused old woman. And I was going to prove to everyone, especially Travis, exactly what I was capable of. The forensic audit took 3 weeks. What it revealed was worse than I'd imagined. Travis hadn't just mismanaged the company, he'd been stealing from it. Over the past 3 years he'd created fake vendor contracts. Companies that didn't exist, billing for services never rendered. The money had gone into accounts he controlled. Approximately $600,000. Simone had been billing personal expenses to the company. Designer clothes, spa treatments, luxury vacations. Another $200,000. Together they'd misappropriated approximately $800,000. The forensic accountant, a woman named Patricia Chen, laid out the evidence in her report. This is clear embezzlement. You have grounds for criminal prosecution. I sat in my office, Travis's former office, and stared at the report. My son was a thief, not just planning to steal from me, actually stealing for years. I called Gerald. We need to meet, the audit results are back. He came to the office that afternoon, read through Patricia's report with increasing shock. $800,000, Margaret, this is criminal. I know. Are you going to prosecute? I thought about it. Travis in prison, my only child, behind bars. Not yet. I want to give him a choice first. What choice? I want to buy him out, remove him from the company entirely. At what price? I did the math. The company was worth maybe $600,000 now after all the debt and problems. Travis's 35% stake was worth approximately $210,000, but he'd stolen $600,000 from the company. He owed that back. I'll offer him $200,000 for his 35%. Take it or leave it. He'll never accept that. He thinks the company's worth millions. Then I'll file criminal charges. Wire fraud is a federal offense. He can have $200,000 or he can have a prison sentence. Let him choose. Sharon delivered the offer to Martin Ross the next day. Travis had 1 week to decide. While I waited for Travis's decision, I worked on saving Thompson Development Group. I met with the major creditors and negotiated restructuring. The $4 million debt was renegotiated to $2.5 million with longer payment terms. I cut executive overhead. No more $400,000 CEO salary. I paid myself $120,000 a fair market rate. I brought in a project manager to assess all the stalled developments. 2 were salvageable. 3 needed to be sold or abandoned. I settled the 2 lawsuits for reasonable amounts, $300,000 total covered by insurance. I fired the deadweight employees Travis had hired. Friends and fraternity brothers who did minimal work for inflated salaries. I hired competent professionals to replace them. In 6 weeks I'd stopped the bleeding. The company was still struggling, but it was no longer dying. And then Travis responded to my buyout offer. Martin Ross called Sharon. My client rejects your offer. He believes his stake is worth significantly more. Then we'll file criminal charges, Sharon responded. Your client embezzled $600,000. That's wire fraud. A federal offense. There was a long pause. Let me talk to my client. 2 days later, Martin called back. Mr. Thompson will accept the buyout. $200,000 for his 35% stake. Have him sign the documents and we'll process the payment. A week later it was done. I owned 95% of Thompson Development Group. Gerald owned 5%. Travis was completely out. The news spread through Atlanta's business community quickly. Travis Thompson removed from his own company for mismanagement. Bought out for a fraction of what the company was supposedly worth. His reputation was destroyed. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd found a job at a competing real estate firm, mid-level position, $90,000 a year, a fraction of the $400,000 he'd been paying himself. Simone divorced him 3 months later. Apparently she blamed him for losing everything. Last I heard, Travis was living in a small apartment in East Atlanta, working long hours trying to rebuild a career he'd destroyed through his own greed and incompetence. I felt sad for him. He was still my son. But I didn't regret what I'd done. 6 months after taking over as CEO, I stood in the Thompson Development Group conference room with Gerald and a man named James Crawford. James was 50 years old, with 30 years of experience in commercial real estate development. He'd successfully turned around 3 struggling firms. I'd recruited him to be the permanent CEO. James, these are the quarterly results under my interim leadership. I handed him the financials. Revenue was up 40% from 6 months ago. We'd completed 2 profitable projects. The debt was down to $1.8 million and falling. The company wasn't just stable, it was thriving. Mrs. Thompson, this is remarkable. You did this in 6 months? I had help. Gerald here has been invaluable, and I hired good people to replace the deadweight. But yes, in 6 months we've turned Thompson Development Group from a failing company into a profitable one. I'm ready to hand it over to permanent leadership, someone who can take it to the next level. James smiled. I'm honored to be that person. We shook hands. I was no longer CEO. I was now chairman of the board, majority shareholder, overseer, not operator. It felt right. That evening, I sat in my home office, looking at a photo of Bernard. I did it, I told him. I saved the company. Travis tried to destroy it, but I saved it. He tried to destroy me too. Steal from me, lock me away. But I didn't let him. I remembered who I am. What we built together, what I'm capable of. I miss you so much. But I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm thriving. My phone rang. My friend Diane from book club. Margaret, are you coming tonight? We're discussing that new novel about women reclaiming their power. I laughed. Perfect timing. Yes, I'll be there. I'll bring wine. How are you doing? After everything with Travis, I'm good. Diane, really good. Turns out taking down your son's company and saving it from bankruptcy is very therapeutic. She laughed. Only you, Margaret. Only you. I'm Margaret Thompson. I'm 68 years old. 8 months ago I walked into my son's office for our monthly lunch date. I overheard him on the phone saying, "Yeah, mom's basically senile now. Once we get power of attorney we can dump her in the cheapest home and sell everything." His wife was nodding and smiling, planning my institutionalization like it was a business transaction. I stood frozen in the doorway. He saw me and didn't even flinch. just looked annoyed that I'd interrupted. I turned and left. The next day, I reviewed documents I'd ignored for years. Documents showing I owned 60% of his company, the company he thought was his. The company I'd funded with $2 million. I called an emergency shareholder meeting. I presented evidence of mismanagement, unauthorized debt, and violation of our operating agreement. I voted to remove him as CEO. My 60% plus Gerald Mitchell's 5% gave us 65% of the vote. We only needed 51%. Travis was removed. Simone was removed. I became interim CEO. Then I discovered he'd been embezzling, stealing from the company to fund his lifestyle. $800,000 in misappropriated funds. I gave him a choice. Accept a $200,000 buyout for his 35% stake, or face federal charges for wire fraud. He took the buyout. I now own 95% of Thompson Development Group. In 6 months as CEO, I turned the company around. Revenue up 40%. Debt down by almost half. Profitable projects completed. I hired a permanent CEO. I'm now chairman of the board. Travis thought I was senile. Too confused to notice. Too weak to fight back. He thought he could steal my money, lock me away, take everything I'd worked for. But I'm not senile. I'm Margaret Thompson, Mom BA from Emory, former CFO of 3 successful companies, 40 years of business experience. I built companies while Travis was still learning to read. And when he tried to destroy me, I destroyed his career instead. That's not revenge. That's accountability. That's justice. He learned an expensive lesson. Don't underestimate your mother, especially when she owns 60% of your company, and 68 years old, widow, businesswoman, majority shareholder, chairman of the board. My son tried to steal my life. I took his company instead, and I'm thriving. Thompson Development Group is profitable again. Growing, strong. Travis is working a mid-level job at a competitor, trying to rebuild a reputation he destroyed. I attend book club. I have lunch with friends. I manage my investments. And once a month I go to the Thompson Development Group offices and review the financials with James Crawford, the CEO I hired, the company my money built, the company I saved. I'm not waiting to die in a nursing home. I'm living. And I'm never letting anyone, not even my own son, take that away from me again. Never underestimate a woman who built 3 successful companies. Never underestimate a mother who knows exactly what her son is worth. And never ever try to steal from someone who owns the majority of your company. That's a lesson Travis learned the hard way. And I have no regrets. I'm Margaret Thompson, and I'm just getting started.